But what was the cinema that you grew up on? Was it no, it wasn't just the hardcore Hindi films.
No, not at all. I would say I grew up watching, grew up till a certain age watching what was accessible to me.
Right.
Um, we don't play a lot of foreign films in commercial theaters in our country,
True.
in most places, and we have a selected amount of Hollywood films, you know, the big ticket movies
Right.
that come here. Of course, in the recent past, that has changed. I would say that I grew up watching what I had access to till a certain age. After 14, 15, I started watching a lot of our yesteryear classics.
Right.
And that was because of my mother. And on DVD, I would go to a DVD library called Read Shore,
Yeah.
which is just about surviving, I think, nowadays.
True.
But yeah, I mean, it's times are changing. Everything is available to you
Digitally,
through the
yeah.
internet digitally. But I would watch a whole bunch of DVDs. Every week I'd be like bringing 20, 21 DVDs, and I had like an Udhar and a Khata that I don't think I've still paid fully. And so I would love to watch a lot of our classics, and then I started watching a lot of like Western classics, and then eventually when film festivals such as Jagaran and the Mumbai Film Festival, which we all love so much, and IFFI came into my life, I was able to watch a lot of foreign cinema on the big screen.
Right.
And that was when I realized the value of watching films in a theater. You know,
Mhm.
there's really nothing quite like it. So that was my journey in terms of, you know, watching films.
What were some of the films that changed your life, or that really, left a big
Influenced me?
impression? Yeah.
I think to a large extent, a lot of my brother's movies
Right.
were large
Which
influences
one
on me when I was.
specifically? Do you remember?
My favorites are like I love his first film.
Yes.
I was that was the first film that I was present almost every day on the set of, and I would like
Really?
I
You must have
yeah
been really little, right?
I was very small. I was 8, and my mother even had an acting part in that film, and she would be present throughout because my brother would be taking like his cues from her, and so it was this experience. I was like, we have to go every day, wake up and go to set. It's like a big thing happening. So, and I loved watching, you know, all the teams at work, the cameramen, the sound team, the you know, there would be sequence where they'd be bowling. I grew a passion for bowling. You know, they'd be dancing in colleges. I was like, I'm going to grow up and dance in colleges. It was just lovely. It was watching a film being made for the first time. And then I absolutely love Jab We Met. I love, you know, Kamine, Heather, you know, and I've got to assist on Urta Punjab. That was something that was a big part of my development as a cinema person.
Right.
So yeah, and of course, most recently Kabir Singh. I absolutely, and I think he did an incredible job. You want to clap? Clap. Do it. uh, but um, but yeah, I a lot of his films. But then there were films like rare films that people wouldn't watch. You know, this Polish master called Krzysztof Kieslowski.
Yeah.
I think his works really influenced me a lot as a person somehow. I don't know. I find a strange mystical, you know, a quality to his films.
Wow.
And I remember I was like, man, I didn't know films could transport you in that way. You know, some of Chaplin's films, like a film called Limelight, I remember seeing again at a festival,
Right.
and Raj Kapoor's films. Uh, oof. There's so many films, you know.
Right.
I remember watching one of these films that perhaps you saw with me in the year they were playing Boyhood. They had a film called Mommy,
Yeah.
and it
Xavier
was so,
Javier
yeah,
Dolan.
Xavier
Yeah.
Dolan's Mommy, and there was that moment, of course, where, you know, it was like watching a. So there's this young Quebecan filmmaker called Xavier Dolan who's made a film called Mommy. If anyone is interested, please do look it up, and if you can watch it on a big screen, try. But there's a moment where he does something so radical with the camera in the film. I think you would know, on the skateboard, and he opens up the screen.
Right.
And that was just incredible. You know, it was like it was a moment where people were acting like they were watching a Salman Khan film.
Right.
You know, it was a festival
Hysterical.
audience. They were all and clapping and
Right.
going crazy, and it was incredible. So I think, and most recently, you know, films like One Cut of the Dead and such exciting films. You know, you realize that films can be so exciting to watch in the theater, no matter where they come from, how they are produced. You know, film called One Cut of the Dead, by the way, was produced by Japanese film students on a budget of, I believe, what is the equivalent of, say, 19 lakh rupees.
Oh wow.
and eventually it made 1,000 times its money, which is 190 something crores, and it played all over the world. But when they started screening it, it was screened in one small student theater with like 60 seats or something like that, and they had a 6-day release.
Wow.
So cinema is so inspiring. You know, it's connecting with people. It's beautiful.
So would you say then that really films chose you more than you make it sound almost like that's that's what sort of chose you as an actor, that it was the experiences that made you, but you didn't necessarily.
No, I mean, I have to acknowledge I was very, very lucky to be growing up in a household where I was exposed every day to arts.
Right.
The ultimate form of arts and storytelling for me is cinema.
Sure.
But I think I was very lucky that I was born to a mother who is a classical Indian dancer. Somebody who devoted her life to 25 years of learning is
Yeah.
no mean feat.
Yeah.
And then performing all over the world, actually representing our country. That's commitment, that's devotion to your craft, to your art.
Yeah.
So that the value of that I learned very early on. My brother was an extension of that.
Yeah.
Even my father, he's a dubbing artist, a
Absolutely.
writer.
Yeah.
My mom comes from a family of writers. So there's been, storytelling is kind of ingrained in I don't know, maybe in my blood.
Right.
So I would say it always had my attention more than anything else.
Right.
I always wanted to find a way of telling a story through whatever I was exposed to or learning.
Right.
So yeah.
I'm going to ask you the question that I suspect it's not the question, but we're going to touch upon the theme that I feel like you've answered like a million times probably since your film came out. The when you're born to a film family, what I mean, we've heard the nepotism argument, and I think that I feel like it's become a very reductive argument. Yes, there is a foot in the door. Yes, there is an awareness about a kid who's got family in the business, but it seems to me that that you still have to earn your stripes. You still have to, beyond the first perhaps the first film, you have to earn the stripes. Have you kind of resigned yourself to the fact that this is a conversation you're going to be having for the rest of your life?
I think it's something that has caught people's fancy and they would
Yeah.
like to talk about it. Oftentimes for the right reasons, oftentimes not. Oftentimes people understand what they're talking about, sometimes people don't. But people like to talk about it,
Yeah.
and it's always good to have debates. And in terms of how I find myself within this debate, I have my own perspective on it. Without getting too deep into this,
Sure. Yeah.
argument or what you may call it, I would say that I think every individual has their own journey, and sometimes people make use of their privilege and choose to abuse it. Sometimes people make more of it than somebody else would. Sometimes it is wasted. And I would say that I have many privileges in my life. Just being born to the family of people who are connected to arts and cinema is not merely it. There is much more to it. The fact that I live in a house where I get 3 meals a day. The fact that and this is very much a privilege that
Right.
we don't understand. The
Right.
fact that we get to
You don't have to pay the
pursue
rent.
what we love. The fact that we don't have to live in a time where we have to fight for our country. There are very many privileges that we live with. This happens to be one of them, and I hope to do good with it, and I hope to do justice to the opportunities I'm given.
Good on you. That really is lovely.